Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone, if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Turquoya on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Minneapolis, so we got another, hometown person. She lives about 10, 15 minutes away from me, so oh my god, now I don't even have to ask about what the weather's like because I already know what it's like. So that's
hmm
that's that's the best part of it. But she's a figure pro and a personal trainer on here to share her health and fitness journey and discuss all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Well, yeah, now I got to skip through the weather thing because I'm just going to update everyone. It's like 90 degrees outside. It's not, hey, I went for a walk last night and that was interesting just to say the least because I had to wait because I was like, because everyone, it was 103 yesterday. So when you have this like pure Norwegian skin, I'm going to burn out there. I mean, it's like I'm going to evaporate out there. So like I had to stay inside and wait until it was about 9 o'clock before I could go on my walk last night. So hey, it's not as bad today. So at least I got that going for me. But before I depress everyone with just weather woes, because that's, I saved that for the end for everyone just to be like, okay, thank God you don't live here. Why don't you give us your backstory just to start off of what really inspired and motivated you to become a bodybuilder?
So it actually wasn't something that I was planning on. I started going to a local gym, Los Campeones, here in Minneapolis. And one of my friends was filming me in a Snapchat, and then he posted it. And then one of his coaches or coach's friends saw my shoulders and they're like, wait, does she compete? And I was like, I do not. And then a couple weeks later, we met up and we just started going at it. And then I think it was about 4 months of solid training. And then I hit the Natural Viking in Bloomington last year.
Is that the one that's at the Masonic homes?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm literally I could walk there basically and take me like 10 minutes. So I'm right around that area. I keep telling people that like around here is like let me know when the next show is so I can like actually go there and stuff like that. But I always forget and so there's that. But I've always complained it's like, oh, there's not a pro show in Minnesota, there's not anything like that. And it's like, well, there's two shows that happen in your home city. So, I don't even get me started on that. But when you were getting started in bodybuilding, I mean, if you mention bodybuilding to anyone in the general public, there are a lot of myths and misconceptions about the sport that people do not, especially when you add the female side to it too. Then it becomes, multiply by 10. But were there any myths or reservations that you had about the sport before you got into it? Or was it one of those things where you just wanted to dive right in and see what happens?
If something sparks my interest, I kind of go right in. I did not know there was two separate categories of kind of non-natural world and natural. And I wanted to stay natural and just see how far I can get my body on my own merit. And I was thankful that my coaches also were very, very well versed in, coaching natural athletes. One of my coaches, Alicia, she actually is one of the top figure pros in the natural world. So it was really great learning from her, seeing her journey, and then kind of understanding, okay, this is kind of the pathway that I can take now. And I know I can do it naturally. And I know kind of what you were saying, there's a lot of misconceptions. There are some people out there who, see a decent physique or good genetics and kind of push the drugs. And I'm really thankful that I didn't run into anything like that. And everyone has been so supportive and, supportive of me staying natural and cultivating myself in the natural world.
I was a little bit aware of like the unnatural side of the sport, but then when I started this podcast, it was like when you find out that Santa Claus isn't real, when you're just like, oh my God, that's like this man, like there's such a big shout on that. So yeah, I love having natural people on too. Now, again, I don't knock anyone that does stuff because it still takes the hard work, but still the natural
hmm
people to me, that's more of my thing because I've never done any of that. And like, good God, you're playing Russian roulette right there. So I don't even want to get into that right there because I've found out some stuff here where I was like, okay, I wish I didn't learn that, but hey, I'll move on. I'll move on in my life. But I mean, I also love to talk genetics on this podcast because I hear this every day. Oh my God, I want his arms. I want her abs. I want their back. Just want to strangle them and just be like, you do not understand that you can work out just like someone, you can eat just like them, you're not going to get the same results as them because unfortunately people are built differently. I mean, there's some people that have really nice backs, some people have like you with the shoulders where people are like, oh, that's really, but on top of that, whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much.
Yes.
Then on the flip side, they have that one body part that just drags behind it, they have to train to oblivion. What was one that really took off for you and one that you've just had to drag behind?
So my shoulders have always been really broad. As long as I remember, if I do like one arm day or one shoulder day, they blow up. So that wasn't very hard for me. It wasn't difficult, but I had to learn how to get a really good connection with my lats while I'm working out so I can finally get them to grow a little bit. But my biggest thing is probably legs. I'm obviously upper body dominant, so I really have to focus on pulling out the detail in my legs. So it's not necessarily the size, it's now getting that detail. And that has been challenging, but I think I'm on my way. But as we know, especially as a natural person, it's going to probably take some years until they're to the point where I can be satisfied with them.
Yeah, I'm 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just absolutely shot. Where I mean, I've always made a joke I could inject pure muscle into my legs, and they're not even gonna calves don't even get me started. I could be that guy doing the 10,000 calf raises a day, and it's not gonna happen. And yeah, I mean, my back was also the one thing that took off, but that's because I was at UPS all throughout college, unloading trucks and stuff. Like, you either got a really nice back or you quit. Those are basically the two options that really get presented to you. But I mean, let's be honest, we're both from Minnesota. It gets very cold here during the winter, so about 6 to 7 months out of the year, like, you don't even want to leave your house. How do you stay motivated in that time of the year? Because, like, we're in the summer mode where, like, yeah, you can go outside, you can do all this stuff, but, like, during the winter, that is the hardest area for me, at least, to stay focused on my goals, because it's like I can't go out for runs, I can't do any of the outdoor really stuff. How do you keep that motivation there? Because that's something that, especially for us upper Midwesterners, really affects us.
I really had to work on my mindset before anything. So in my November was my last show. So not only am I now going into the winter months, I'm going to be getting bigger, fluffier. And so I just went from this amazing physique and it's in the middle of January. It's depressing outside. Everyone has, maybe a little bit seasonal depression. So I really had to focus on, okay, this is temporary. You see what your body can get to now. Now it's just the long game. And once I started to give myself positive affirmations every day of, okay, this is not what you're going to look like forever. And, you're going to be building back to that on stage physique. It was a little bit easier to stay consistent. And then also I have, again, my coaches are great, Alicia and Dennis. They're like, if I needed to talk to something or if I just needed to cry, I can call them and they'll kind of bring me back down to earth. And again, remind me like, yes, I've come really far, but this is always bodybuilding is a work in progress. Dennis always says it's bodybuilding, not body built. So I just need to keep that mindset and then keep pushing.
Like I've said many times on this podcast, this is a sport of diminishing returns when it comes to upgrading your physique. It's like you're not going to see these changes overnight. Unfortunately, a lot of people get into this lifestyle and they're just like, oh, I'll do it for like 3 or 4 months and, I'll put on like so much. It's like, no, you won't. And again, if that does happen, you give me a call and I will spend my entire life savings to train with you then, because you have found, the secret that everyone's looking for. But how do you deal with the mental side of, like, people bust their butt in this sport for minimal? And when I say minimal, obviously you can put on some pounds of muscle, but like, it's not going to be the changes that you see in the cartoons or in the movies, overnight. How do you deal with that side of the sport where it's like you can work your butt off, but it's not really like going to be that vast of a change, really?
Yeah, that's the part that kind of gets me down sometimes because I'll get a really good pump after a shoulder day, but then again, as the natural person, as soon as the food is out of my system or whatever, I deflate. And then again, it's tough when I know I'm around a lot of non-natural people who can keep that, that tightness kind of year round. They'll get a little bigger, but they still have, their basic shapes. So that was one thing. I'm like, I had to stop comparing myself to non-natural people. I think that's where it started for me because again, they have that leg up where I just can't stay that full year round. I can't stay that lean year round and just understand that I'm on my own path. And again, like you said, like I do have respect for everybody in bodybuilding because it's hard. It's hard. But I had to remember I'm in my own lane. This is my journey and this has nothing to do with anybody else. And once you focus on your own stuff, it's much easier to accomplish those little tasks. And then those little tasks become not so difficult anymore. And then I'm here where I would, this time last year, if I got sad or had a bad day, I might skip the gym. And now I'm like, this is what I have to do. It's just something I have to do.
You nailed perfectly why I've never been to Los myself, because I would get too embarrassed by all those people that I'm there and I'm just like, this is BS, and I just probably just leave and just be like, okay, I can't go there anymore. So yeah, because that's the Minneapolis gym where a lot of bodybuilders go, but I've never gone in there because I was like, I'd take one look around and be like, yeah, I don't belong here, and then just go and leave. I'm not at that level yet, so yeah. But that is great. Yeah, comparing yourself to others, that's a human flaw that everyone has, and especially in bodybuilding that gets amped up to 11. So it's very important just to realize that, like, yeah, you're on your own individualized journey. But you talked about nutrition, and I mean, that is the biggest thing that is not talked about as much as it needs to be when it comes to the changes that you're going to see. I mean, I have all these friends who, I'm 27, so God bless them. They still think that they can go, eat Burger King or McDonald's, 2 or 3 times a week. And if they work out a lot, it's like, yeah, well, maybe because you're younger, but call me in 10 years and see how that's working out for you. But what have been some of the bigger nutritional changes that you've made when you really started to get serious into bodybuilding?
Well, when my coaches first saw me, I was under eating substantially. I was at about 1,300 calories a day. I was going through a little bit of a depression phase. And I was like, oh, I'm doing great because I look really lean. You feel good because you look good. But then also understanding I'm not healthy right now. And so my coach Alicia like slowly started to add food back in. And once I understood that that was my fuel, then it was easier to again shift my mindset around it and be like, okay, you're not fat, you have muscle, you know that you're in shape, you know you put the work in. It's just having those daily conversations with yourself to remind yourself, like, hey, like just because you look fluffy doesn't mean you're slacking or you're not doing enough. But it's always like in the back of my mind a little bit. I'm like, how am I working this hard? And I can't see my abs. I can't see the parts of my back I want to see, my legs, especially my legs. I hold fat um a lot on my legs. So it's tough, but I think once honestly a good nutrition coach for somebody first starting out to really explain this is why you need to eat this much. This is what it's actually doing and you'll actually probably look better after you add more calories and then slowly start to come down again when you get closer to your show.
A lot of people that I talk to talk about some of the hardest things of their entire journey is eating that last bit of food during the day when you're just not feeling it. Do you ever struggle with that? And if you do, how are you able to put that down? Because I've had moments myself where like I am full and then I'm like, oh, I got to have one more chicken breast. And you're just like, I don't know how I can do it.
Yeah. So the last couple weeks I've actually been struggling. My last meal has been at like 10 p.m. and it's a little too close to bedtime for me. So I'm now trying to get up at like 6 a.m., get as much protein in as I can in my first meal, and then work from there. So my last meal now is around 8 p.m. So I'm starting to shift just everything earlier in my day. So that way when I go to bed, I'm not having this really full feeling or waking up feeling kind of bloated.
I'm still stuck in that getting up at like 12:30 for 15 minutes just to make like a just to make something, just a little snack to eat. So I more power to the people that are able to get all their food out of the day because yeah, it's that is, food if food could be fixed, I've always said like 85% of the general public would have almost all of their health problems
Yep.
fixed if food would be I
Hmm.
mean, so it's something that really needs to be talked about more, so I love to bring it up. And I mean, just another thing too that I just was so shocked to learn, it's like it's an expensive lifestyle as well, especially when it comes to the food. Do you have any tips on like how to save money when you're buying all of this protein and all of this food? Because a lot of people just did not understand that fact of like your food bills are going to be ginormous at times.
Yes. So I'm very thankful I'm sponsored by C4. So I actually get a free thing of protein, creatine, like all my supplements every month. So that part, which as you know can be very expensive, is really nice that that's taken care of. But for my food, like I shop at Cub, I'll look for coupons. I'll Target Circle is a really good one. Sometimes they'll have flash like 50% off meat or something. So like I make sure I'm looking at all these little things to just minimize my cost as much as possible. But it is expensive.
Do you flavor at all like any of the protein that you have or anything? Because like one of my biggest struggles is I went like 2 weeks of trying to do that bodybuilder diet. And I literally by the second week, I was like, I cannot eat that same chicken breast or that same plain rice or that same
Mhm.
anything. So I know some people like put mustard on it, and I'm like, okay, that's desperation right there. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. But do you try to add stuff on to make it more tasty? Because like I've talked to people that haven't done that, and I was like, okay, you suffer from a severe mental illness. We need to take care of this first of all before, because you're eating plain chicken joyfully. But do you do anything to spice it up at least?
I do when I'm transitioning from like the off season into my diet, I'll add a little bit more seasonings, then I'll slowly start to pull them. So my last 2 months, at least for this prep that I'm in right now, is going to be completely plain. Because again, the more flavorful it is, the more that your brain is going to want it. So I want to at least be able to ease into it, but then understand like, okay, I'm going to be hungrier and hungrier as my calories start to drop. So I need to make sure I'm just eating boring food that I'm like kind of like you said, sick of. And by the end of prep, I swear, like chicken just tastes like sawdust and I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. But it's what has to be done.
Oh, absolutely. What is your go-to cheat meal that you enjoy the most?
So right, I'm trying not to do cheat meals this time around, but if I do, it's just going to be like a Chipotle style. So either I'll make my own or I'll have like a Chipotle bowl, but I'll only have the chicken and a little bit of rice. And then I'll come home. I actually did this last week. I came home, took it out of the container and weighed it just to make sure I knew all of the macros. So I'll do something like that. Or if I really wanted to, maybe in the off season, if I was doing something like a good burger, you can never go wrong.
Yeah, I had Chipotle on my way home from work today, so like 2 hours ago. So I will probably be feeling it towards the end of this podcast here. I'm gonna have to walk it off a little bit tonight before I go to bed. But yeah, Chipotle, you can never. I mean, if I ever just want to carb up, that's the go-to place right there. I mean, it is ridiculous in that aspect. But a lot of people that I've talked to that are in the figure category, they start out in bikini and then they work their way up. Did you start out in figure, or was it one of those where you had to just work your way up to it?
Yep. So the Natural Viking last year was my first show ever, and I felt for myself looking at the category, my shoulders were already too broad, too muscular. I would have to lose all that muscle, and I didn't want to do that. So I was like, let's try figure. I love the action figure look. I thought I kind of had it, and it worked out well for me. But I do see a lot of people starting in bikini and moving up. The only issue I have is I've talked to a couple girls who they're like, no, I want to do figure. I don't want to do bikini, but their coaches are like, no, you have to start at bikini. And I don't agree with that. I think if it's a category you want to work up to, you just probably have to take the mindset of, okay, I'm probably not going to win my first show, but if this is a category I want to be working towards and I want to lose as little muscle as possible, then I think you should go in that category. There's other people I'm sure who would say, yeah, you should start small, work your way up. But for me, it's already kind of a miserable process. So it's like, why would you also do a category that you don't really want to be doing in the first place?
Yeah, because I've talked to people that are physique competitors now that start out in bikini. It's like, but then some people like, yeah, like you just have that natural body part or body parts where there's like, okay, if you were to
Hmm.
compete bikini, it would be like, who's that girl with the shoulders on stage trying to do bikini poses? Okay, so yeah, I've heard
Also,
plenty of those. Yeah,
I'm just not very graceful either. And like the bikini is more of like a pageant
you
show.
have to
And
have your own pizzazz really and flair and stuff, and that's
yes.
something that you're either born with or born without. I mean, it can rarely be taught. You just have to have that personality type. I found out. So
And I am not.
yeah.
I'm not graceful. I am, no.
Well, what was your experience like with those heels? Because I mean, for as much as you guys go through to have to wear heels on that stage, I was like, come on, that's torture.
I was so angry, like, because it's like 4-inch heels,
Yeah.
and I like look like a baby giraffe. It took a while to like I had to wear them around the house a little bit, and I still you can see if you look back at my shows, like I didn't look completely comfortable, so I'm trying to focus on that now, leading up to this next show of okay, walking around, feeling the poses in the shoes, and it's I would like to not wear shoes, but I also don't want to move up to physique yet. So I'm gonna stuck with the heels until if and when that day comes, then I would love to be barefoot on stage. That sounds so nice.
I mean, that would be the reason for me to even like compete is like if like I had the choice, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever I can take to to get to physique. But now we gotta talk about posing because that is the one thing that before I started this, I mean, I if you were to tell me between nutrition, posing, and working out, which one would be the hardest, I would have probably said probably either the working out or the nutrition. I would have never guessed
Mhm.
posing, but for so many guests that I've had on, posing is the hardest thing for them. What has your experience with posing been like?
Well, Alicia had to really start with from scratch with me. Like I had actually a picture up on my Instagram of my first pose to like a week before the show, and it was just I was like that was bad. So you really have to practice, practice, practice. One big thing too is holding that pose. So find how it looks good and then hold it for like 30 seconds. Stop, hold it for 30 seconds again. And that the holding it part, like I now know how to pose fairly well, but it's the holding it, especially on stage. You're depleted, so you're trying not to shake, but again, to avoid all that shaking on stage, you just have to practice every day. So now after every workout, I'll go pose for a little bit, try to hold it, especially when I'm fatigued, and that's honestly the best thing that's helped me so far.
That is the biggest thing that isn't talked about posing too is having to hold it and just developing that muscle connection that like
Mhm.
human beings are not meant to be in that pose for that long a period of time. So it's
No.
like I've seen some shows online where it's like they get these poor people out there for like 5 to 10 minutes in that and it's like what are you doing with yourself? So yeah, that is I mean posing that is the one thing that you can have the best physique on the planet and if you don't know how to pose, I mean you're not gonna do too well. But out of the poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite?
I think I look kind of awkward in the front pose, but I do like how my like the front of my lats are really visible. But I like kind of the women's physique, like back double bi, like that's a money shot.
And plus, you
So
don't
I
have
like to
and plus you can
incorporate
put
it
your
in my
smile
routine.
down too as well. You don't have to be smiling. So
Yes. Yeah, back like if I'm my back's to that stage, I'm like, I am not smiling.
that's another thing I would have never guessed too is that like your jaw muscles after this show are going to be some of the most sore parts of you because like first of all I'm not a natural like super smiley person, so like having to do that for like however long you have to do it, even when you're like being announced like the results of the show and you're like, oh god, just kill me right now, basically. But it just yeah, it's again we talked about this before. Like this is so many little things in the sport that people don't understand. It's like yeah, who would have ever guessed that smiling your jaw's gonna hurt and you just gotta yeah, it's honestly all these little things. And when you did walk up on that stage, and when you, as you've, competed in some other events too, I mean, what is that moment like for you when you finally get to walk up on that stage and, show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on?
So my first one, it was scary because I'd never done it before. I hadn't been on stage since I was in like high school band or something, so it was a while. But once you get up there, you do get kind of comfortable. And then I thankfully had a really great support system in the audience. So they were kind of talking me through, like my coach Dennis would be like, all right, open up the floor, like turn your legs on. I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm supposed to be doing that right now. And so that was really helpful. And also, just like the cues again from my other coach, Alicia, like, all right, you need to turn. Okay, show this a little bit more, do this. And so it helped to have that support system. And I honestly think it would have gone very poorly for me if I didn't have that.
Did time seem to slow down, or did it seem to speed up, or was it sort of a mixture?
I felt like I was going like normal pace, but when I looked at my routine, I went so fast. And so that's one thing I have to do is like slow down, like take my time, maybe take a couple slower steps, things like that.
Yep, I would be just like that. I'd be the guy on the mound who, as soon as I get the ball back, I'm throwing another one. I'm not even waiting around or doing anything. I don't even care. Yeah, so I was, people liked watching me because they'd be like, yeah, the game ends in like an hour and a half as opposed to like 2.5 hours. So, there's positive that. But yeah, I'm one of those people too where it's high pressure situations like that. It's like, yeah, just get me in and get me out. But
Mhm.
what was your post show meal that you had?
My first one, Alicia brought me a cookie from Crumble Cookies, and it was a Twix one. It was so good. And then I went to go get a burger after. Some burger and fries at Crave.
Oh yeah, I went
Mhm.
there. I honestly went there a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, and it was good. I would just rent a Five Guys with $1,000, just be like, you're gonna feed me until I puke, pass out, or or die. Either way, I'm getting my money's worth. But post show blues is something that is not talked about, and it needs to be, I think, because a lot of people do not understand that look that you present on stage is not going to be around 24/7. Unfortunately, I see a lot of times that there are people who they run into bodybuilders who are in their off season. They just say to them, "Oh, so you gave up competing and stuff like that. Oh, so you're done." It's like they don't understand that, like, no, I'm not going to have shredded 8 pack and like jacked veins, all year round. It's just not going to be. But what was that like when you first realized that? And has it gotten easier as you've done another prep to sort of realize that, like, hey, I am gonna have to put on weight after a show, and it's healthy and it's like a good thing, as opposed to a lot of people they might associate with like, oh, it's bad that you're putting on weight. It's like, no, actually, you're not at your healthiest when you step on that stage.
So my first show, I had my first show, and then 2 weeks was my next show. 2 weeks after that was my next show. So I'm in my second prep ever right now. But it's to be completely transparent, like I definitely binged eat um, a lot at that time, and it wasn't even that I was hungry. It just I did start to just get sad. I'm like, I'm not going to look like this anymore. But for some reason, I just couldn't stop eating. And so I then got very sick. Like I'd have stomach issues, things like that. And of course, this was my first time coming out of a show ready body. And so now that I understand that a little bit more, I'm definitely going to take it a little bit slower this next time of just slowly, gradually eating, starting to build up again and not just hit all the junk food and everything like that. But it's tough on your psyche because again, you went from this fantastic physique and like even the first meal after the show, like in your mind, it's like, I'm just going to blow up now. Like it doesn't even matter what I eat. Like it's already ruined basically. And so I still have to overcome that little bit of, you know, the struggle from that. But I think this time it's going to be better.
Oh, I mean, I hear so many people that are just like, it could be, my I could be talking to someone who's doing like their 10th prep and stuff like that. And said, yeah, it does get incrementally easier. It's never going to be, easy peasy, but it does seem to get a little better. What is your go-to binge food?
Gummies, anything gummies,
Ooh.
any gummy candy, I will eat it all.
What's your favorite color?
I like lifesaver gummies and the red one.
Oh, I like red gummy bears. You could give me a whole 10-pound bag. But honestly, my worst. I love bread. I just do. I mean, if only they were to come up with a bread that like had zero carbs in it, zero fat. I mean, I would probably eat like 15 pounds a day. I'm not gonna lie. Like it would be ridiculous, but yeah, that is my vice. I go to Brugger's once a month. That is my cheat thing where I get 3 or 4 bagels there and just pow down and yeah. But that I mean, it's nice to at least. I'm not gonna say it's nice to binge, but it's nice to binge every once in a while, just to let yourself go just a tiny bit. Obviously, don't do it like every day, but it's always nice every once in a while because like people that eat clean for so long, it's like I have talked to them where at a point they're just like, I just need to do it. And I was like, just binge, just one night. And then you don't have to, but it's just like letting loose every once in a while. Every once in a while, you got to go to a bar and just have a few drinks and just, I think it's more positive than negative when it's just, letting loose every once in a while. But I mean, let's be honest too, you're not the average looking woman, especially, in this time of year with the weather and everything. And you walk out, if
Hmm.
I were to go to Lake Nokomis where my brother lives, I'm not going to see really that many bodybuilders walking around.
Right.
I like to compare it to being like a mini celebrity where it's like you are going to draw people's attention just because of the way that you look. And I've always found it fascinating, people's reactions. But what has that been like for you? Is it something that it's gotten easier for you to adjust to? Or is it still one of those things where like, okay, it's kind of weird that I'm getting all these stares?
Um, I'm kind of used to it because people would always make comments about my wide shoulders, like when I'm playing sports in high school and things like that. So it kind of like disparaging comments. And so it's kind of different now when people are kind of celebrating me for it. And so I'm like, wait, this isn't what I'm used to. So it's honestly kind of nice just to hear like people appreciating solid structure versus, trying to come at you because you look a certain way or whatever it is. But I don't mind it now.
Well, and I found it has been getting a lot more positive too, because like ever since, I mean, I think Instagram and other things have helped, bring more of acceptance and the sort of, which I've always found so funny. It's like you could be 450 pounds, and if someone says something bad about you, they will get ripped apart by people in
Mhm.
public and everything. And someone's in shape, you can say, "Oh, you look too in shape. You gotta do that." People don't say anything. They don't care. I've always found
Yep.
that to be just the most. It's like you can't obviously don't make fun of someone who's obese, but like if you were
Right.
to, and then you were to make of someone in shape, they will be vastly more sympathetic to the obese person than. So I've
Right.
always found that to be funny. Where it's like, where are we at as a society then? Where that is the thing where it's like, but you know, I've always just found that very fascinating that I've, even had guests on that have, I've seen some of the messages that they get, even when I make posts about them coming on the podcast. And it's like,
Mhm.
why would you, I mean, a lot of it's jealousy and a lot of it's because it's a lot of gym bros who have never got those results. And they're just like, oh,
Right.
so don't even get me started on that. I mean, gyms in college, that was the entire thing was just
Man.
checking each other out the whole time. So it's, oh my god. So what is the so as someone who's never been to Los, what is the
Mhm.
atmosphere like there? Because like I found that like a lot of the big bodybuilders go there. What is the community like there? Because that is the one gym. Like if you mention people in
Mhm.
the in the Minnesota area, like that is the bodybuilder gym.
Right. So I feel like each location has like a different vibe. So like Northeast is kind of younger, kind of like the more gym bros, but like very supportive in that aspect. Franklin's kind of like the old school, and then St. Paul's brand new. And then I kind of think as Blaisdell location is kind of like the lifestyle people, which, they're coming in, they want to be functional, they want to be able to move well, things like that. So I just like however my mood is feeling, I can kind of go to whichever gym corresponds with that. But mainly I go to Franklin, and it's very supportive. You see the same people every day. You see coaches. Like I'm one of those people. I'll go ask somebody a question, and again, they're very happy to answer. They want to support you. They see what you're doing. They understand what goes into it. So I've had nothing but support there.
I learned something new. I only thought there was one. I only thought there was one
Oh
Los, but
no.
there's more than okay. Yeah, so there's that. Because like I've had a ton of people go. Like I've had Elizabeth Moline, I've had her on. I've had
Hmm.
Stephanie Rose on. I've had, a lot of, so yeah, a lot of people, in that area. But one thing also about this lifestyle too that I've found is the best part about it for me at least is that like everyone is so supportive of each other when you get into this journey because you look at most sports, people want to rip each other's throats out. But with bodybuilding, it seems like, especially on the women's side, now with the men, it might be a little bit different, but like with the
Right.
women, especially, like they genuinely care about each other. It's a whole community. What is that like for you, and how important is that to know that like when you step on stage, there are competitors out there that have your back, and it's like just a whole community where they share things, and it's a nice community to be in.
Right. I for the most part kind of keep to myself, but I do have my little gym family people, and it's so nice. Like it's just nice to see like a friendly face, someone that you again see every day. They're working towards very similar goals as you, and you can share information, you can uplift each other. It's especially for women who look the way that we do. Like to have that camaraderie is like very special, and I really do value that at the gym. And again, I've gone up to people like Sandra at the gym, or there's a lot of other women who've done a lot in bodybuilding, are pros, things like that. And it's just sometimes I'm like just in awe. And I'm like, wow, look at her traps or look at her shoulders. And I'm just like, how? And then, you can go up and be like, hey, you have a really developed chest. Can you show me some exercise and get a lift in? And everyone is just so nice that way. So I really appreciate that aspect about, especially about lows.
The only problem is that I would bring a notepad and be like, "Tell me everything. Like, tell me exactly what you do, like, day to day." So, because yeah, I'm one of those, like, I've even taken polls where it's like, "What do you do for legs?" Because I'm trying to get the legs. So, like, I ask
Mhm.
almost every guest. It's like, "What do you do for that?" So then I try it out myself, and there have been times where I've seen results, and there have been times where I haven't seen results. But again, it's all, it's based on a lot of it's the genetic factor and other things. But I mean, yeah, that community is just one of the reasons why I keep doing this podcast, because I just loved, hear all the positive stories with that. But I mean, I hate cardio more than life itself. And when I say cardio, I mean actual running. Like, I live right next to Bush Lake and everything, so I go on walks all the time in the nature parks that I live by. But running, I mean, I've always made the joke to anyone that I know, you'd have to be chasing me with a knife to really get me to run. That's the only time you're ever going to really see me run. But unfortunately, when you become a bodybuilder, you have to sign a deal with the devil when it comes to cardio. What is your relationship with cardio like?
Mhm. I it's funny because in college I ran 400s and I absolutely loved them. I would do two a race, the 400 open and the 4x4 relay, and then I'd anchor the 4x4 or the 4x8 as well. So I used to love it. And then once you start doing something a little bit different, like obviously bodybuilding muscles aren't the same as track muscles. So once I started lifting in a different way, I'm like, I don't even know if I could run a 400 right now. So I like walking. I like high intensity training if I have to, but I do as little cardio as I can to keep my heart healthy. And I'm not a fan. I just I don't like it. I'm still trying to develop a healthy relationship with it. But if I had to pick, just steady state walking is something that I can do, I guess. But
If there's one positive that I can take from a track and field lifestyle, is that I've heard at least from stories of people that used to be in track, that you can get away with eating a little bit more than you could
oh
before. You,
my
you can have you
god,
can have those chocolate shakes after a meet and stuff like that, and not have to worry about it. So that's the one positive I've taken out of that, is like, yeah, if you do that lifestyle, food is your friend then, basically then. But
oh man,
oh my
I
god.
have like stories like from on the track bus on the way home. Like we'd all get like 10 burgers from McDonald's and smash them. Oh, you can't do that anymore.
Oh, that was me after 2 days in football too. Yeah, just go to the local McDonald's or the Burger King, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
eat like 3,000 calories in the next hour, basically, and just yeah, that was. Yep, that was I. And when you have that young person metabolism too, where you're just like, oh my god, just feed me what. Oh, I miss that so much.
Those were the
Oh,
days.
those were definitely the days. Oh my god, yeah. I'm even drooling a little bit right now just thinking about that. So I got to move on before like I start eating this, microphone or something like that. Good god, but I mean, sleep is the most important thing in this lifestyle and in life in general. Anyone that disagrees with me on that, pull an all-nighter, then go try to work out. I did that twice in college, and both times I got halfway into my workout and I just said, "Screw this. I can't do this anymore. I need to go back and take some rest." But also, being a bodybuilder, sleep can be very bipolar, especially as you get into a prep, where a lot of people just don't understand this. There's a point where you get so tired that you can't sleep. And I know that sounds kind of
Yes.
ridiculous to people, but it's like, no, it's true. How do you deal with the bipolarness of sleeping that comes with being a bodybuilder?
I'm already like don't have the greatest sleep schedule, so sometimes I just have to force myself and be like, all right, you have to try to go to sleep. And I naturally get up, 6:30 in the morning. So if I'm still up at midnight, I'm like, well, I'm already going to be up at 6:30. So I've tried to sneak in like mini naps now. But I really have to work. That's one area that I don't really have under control as much as I'd like. So I'm really going to focus on putting the phone away early, just cutting everything out, and we're going to hope that that's going to work this time because I don't have a great handle on sleep. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I'll tell you what I told a guest that I'm going to have on Saturday, a repeat guest. She said, would it be all right if we do, 9 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday? And I told her, I said, look, you're a great guest. I love talking to you. But if Margot Robbie woke me up at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, I would tell her to F off. So, that's just where I say I am one of those people where, yeah, if it's the weekend or even during the weekdays, because like I work every once in a while, I'll have to work at like 6 a.m., but normally I'm like a 10 or 11 a.m., which is perfect for me where I get to sleep in. But I still, at times, still have that college sleep schedule where it's like I'm going to go to bed at like 2 or 3 in the morning and, just
Mhm.
get up at like 10 or 11 and, see what happens. So, yeah, I do struggle with that. It's always about once every 2 or 3 weeks, I'll have a night where I just don't sleep at all, just because yeah,
Mhm.
and I absolutely hate it. So sleep, if anyone has any tips out there, I'm more than happy to hear them. I got my two things of
Yes.
melatonin right next to me as we're speaking right now, but there are times where even that doesn't help. But yeah, so sleep, everyone. If you can get your sleep schedule, I mean, there's one of the best feelings in the world is when you wake up after that proper night's sleep and you feel like a superhero,
Oh
where
man.
everything is just so well rested and just I have rarely I get that probably once every couple of months. So those are good days. But other than that, Yeah, it's just it's a struggle right there in and of itself. But just in this whole lifestyle and everything, it's so much more of a mental sport than it is a physical sport. And a lot of people do not
Yes.
understand that. I bet you get this all the time. Oh my God, you look amazing from people that like maybe haven't seen you for years, but they just don't understand also
Hmm.
that physical change or that mental change that has happened as well. Because, for everything that happens to you physically, 100 times more important mental stuff happens to you where it's like you just
Right.
develop such a strong mentality. What has this journey been like for you mentally?
I honestly think it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. So I've stopped drinking about a year and 2 months ago, not because it was like a problem, but just because I'm like, this is not conducive to me, having a really healthy lifestyle. So
I always say no matter what, never tell people that you stop drinking because then you're gonna get that look like, oh,
yes.
what's wrong with what's
What did you do?
just say I haven't had a drink for a while. Just tell them that. That's what I always
Right.
tell them because like I've said that to people too. Like even during COVID, I was like, oh, I haven't had a drink for like 4 months. People like, did you really go that hard in the beginning of COVID? And I was like, no. Well, I had a little bit of wine sometimes at night just to help myself sleep, but that's a whole different story. But
Mhm.
yeah. So anyway, continue with your story.
No, that's very accurate. That's why I'm like, it's way cooler than saying the mimosa started to hurt my stomach.
Oh yeah.
So, but no, I just realized like, okay, this is really a long haul. This is going to take a long time, especially again as a natural person. If I want to get the physique that is in my mind, I tried to cut out as much unhealthy things as I can. So I'm already not a smoker. I don't drink now, and I tried it. My big thing now is trying to get enough water in. But I think those are like the whole mentality has changed in that again, I used to be such a short term, instant gratification type of person, like we all are now because social media, all these things. And this kind of taught me to slow down a little bit and look at the bigger picture. And I think that kind of weaved itself into my life with family and friends and things like that. So now it's even resolving conflicts has even changed for me because I'm like, wait, I'm really mad in this moment, but now I can see past that. And I think honestly, because of bodybuilding, it does teach you so many different things and how to navigate life, especially when you're cranky and hungry, and understanding just, okay, stop for a second, like recalibrate, and then you can move forward again. And I think that's the main thing that bodybuilding has taught me.
What were your friends and family's reaction like when you announced them? Hey, I want to get bodybuilding. Try that's not something that a lot of people hear.
I mean, they were supportive in that they're always supportive in anything that I try to do. But the big thing isn't that so unhealthy? Are you going to take drugs? How you're starving yourself and all these things. And I'm like, well, at the same time, they're going and getting McDonald's, every other day. And I'm like, I'm
While
confused.
pounding out a Big Mac, you're really being unhealthy with yourself.
Exactly. So that was like a big hurdle. I was like, okay, I know they're being as supportive as they know how to be. And once I again understood that aspect, that they're only coming from a place that they know and that they've lived, then I could take their support and their criticisms and understand it's nothing personal towards me. But overall, they come to my shows, they check in on me, see how I'm feeling. So I have a great support system with my friends and family.
My parents literally did this verbatim when I was like probably 21, 22, and I was doing cardio because I was doing like my second cardio of the day because I was just trying to get down for the summer. They go, oh, that's just so unhealthy. Literally 5 minutes later, they're ordering 3 pizzas from Papa John's on the phone. And I'm just like, pot meat kettle basically where it's just
Hmm.
so I do find that very fascinating as well. But a question that I love to ask all the natural competitors that I have on, because this is a sport of temptation, let's be completely honest. It is very tempting for people to just take the drug route and just be like, hey, it's going to make it so much easier. It's like playing Candyland. You just go like, you get like 10 ladder, I don't know, you get like an extra upgrade. I mean, it's just so easy to take that
Right.
and just upgrade. I got tongue tied and twisted right there, everyone. That's the one time that it happens every podcast right there. But it's just so easy for people to fall to that temptation. And
Hmm.
how have you been able to sort of not fall into that? Because for every person that is on Instagram, I'm gonna be honest, that claims that they're like natural and does all that, I mean, it's like
Hmm.
there's so many of them that aren't, and you can tell obviously because like, dude, you have like traps that are like you can barely breathe. It looks like basically, but it's
Right.
like, and it's like you're telling me like, oh, this is just all God given and so. But like, how
Hmm.
how have you been able to avoid that temptation while others haven't? And not saying that those people that haven't avoided the temptation are bad people or anything like that. I'm just saying
Right.
it takes a very strong willpower to stay natural in a sport where everyone at the top is not.
Right. So for me, I have two main reasons. My first one is, again, I pride myself a lot on my work, whether it's physical work or intellectual work, whatever I'm doing, I take a lot of pride in it. And for me, again, I don't think people who take things are bad people or don't have willpower or anything like that. But for me personally, it means a lot more for me to go on stage and look like that and knowing like that was literally just me. That was me. Nothing helped me, besides obviously a good coach and diet and everything, but nothing artificial helped me gain that physique. And then the second reason is when I was born with a defective kidney. So I actually had a small tumor on one of mine. And so I only have one fully functioning kidney, and I just don't want to risk, my overall health for that.
That is a good reason if I haven't heard any. I
Yes.
mean, yeah, that is. I mean, yeah, if any coach says, "Why aren't you doing this?" You just tell them that, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, totally
Hmm.
understand. Yep, no problem. Move along and stuff like so." So yeah, that is, hey, more power. And again, I really appreciate you being a natural athlete and doing that because, like I said, I got nothing against the enhanced athletes, but it's like it's nice
Right.
to have people that can have role models that they can look at and say, like, you know what, hey, I can do it a certain way without having to subject myself to all that stuff. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it, would be one thing that you'd like to see changed.
No heels for figure, but no.
That too.
Just kidding. Um, One thing I would like to see is trying to think of how to put this. I feel like the natural world gets a lot of flack again because we don't look as crazy as the people on gear, for obvious reasons. But I would like that to not be as much of an excuse for some people because I personally feel like, well, I'm natural, so of course I'm going to be watery, of course I'm going to be this, and that's why I really look up to Courtney Spaeth. Have you heard of her? She's a big figure person. She puts on a lot of
It
shows.
rings a bell. Yeah.
Right. So she is just insane physique, and she did it all naturally, and I'm like, that's what we should be like striving to be towards is, you can look absolutely insane and probably go on an IFBB stage and beat a lot of people on gear. It takes a lot of time, commitment, hard work, and really dialing in on your diet. So I'd really like to see people step up a little bit, and that's one thing that I really like that I'm bringing to the table is, just a more overall aesthetic physique, you know what I mean? So I already appreciate the hard work that all these natural athletes do, but I would like to see like a little bit more fire in a couple people's bellies cuz again, I've seen their physiques, I can see what they're capable of, and I want to see them live up to that full potential cuz that's what makes me happy.
I mean, that Courtney, she's just one of those genetic freaks where you just look at her and you're just like, screw you. I I,
How?
I hate my life.
How?
Yeah, yeah. I've had two of those on the podcast where I was like, there's no way you look like this, just
Mhm.
just genetically. And then they showed me a photo of when they were like 8 years old and they had like an 8 pack, and I was like, okay, you know what, just get off. And this is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I do have to say, there are people out there like that, and they will embarrass you and just make you feel like I did all this in
Mhm.
my journey, and these people can just walk in the gym and eat 10 donuts and do just one bench press, and then they're
Mhm.
just super veiny and shredded, and just ignore them. They are freaks of nature that you're just like, okay, whatever. But I mean, you're also a personal trainer as well, and
Mhm.
like we talked about before, personal trainer. There's so much more to it than this training aspect. You're a therapist. Let's be completely honest. You basically should go to school for therapy. Like let's be completely honest. There's just so many more things to this lifestyle. And what was one thing that you were surprised to find out about being a personal trainer that you would have probably never thought of had you not pursued it?
How open people are to telling you very personal details of their lives. Like
This
cuz I'm
podcast, this
kind of that
podcast for me
way.
too. Where I was like, I did not need to hear that, but good to know. Yeah.
But no, I think that's the biggest thing, and at first it wasn't alarming in a negative way, but it's like, wow, these people really trust you with these intimate details of their life. And again, the fact that somebody's putting that trust in you it's a lot in that it's a big responsibility, but it's also okay, I'm connecting with this person to that level where they feel comfortable enough, where they feel like they can tell me these things. And again, then I can kind of get in there and see how it's affecting, maybe their diet or their sleep. And we can kind of bring it full circle back to the actual training aspect. And that's the part I really enjoy. I do enjoy talking to people. I would prefer one-on-one training versus virtual training or just giving someone a plan. I really enjoy that human interaction.
I've talked to plenty of online trainers, and as much as I'm saying from a guy who does a podcast online, really, if I could buy a studio and have people come in. I mean, I'm just one of those two where it's like face to face. It's so much easier, and it's so much, it's so much personal, and I really enjoy that as well. But you mentioned stress, and that is something that people do not understand how much of an impact stress can have on your overall look, just
Mhm,
everything in your body. How do you deal with stress, and especially being a bodybuilder, where it's like there have been times, yeah, where I've gained like 2 or 3 pounds just on stress alone, and I
mhm,
can guarantee that it's because of stress because I've been really, really stressed out, and then I weigh myself, and I was like, okay, I didn't even eat that much, so there's no way.
right. Along with sleep, that's another area that I really need to work on. But again, just taking it day by day, I've learned to now remove myself from situations that are really stressful or at least communicating like, hey, I can't deal with this right now. this is going on in my life, and then kind of circling back to it later. But I think that's one big thing, like you said, especially for natural people, you really have to control your stress levels, your cortisol levels, all those things to make sure that your physique is coming in the way that you want it to, especially when you're getting close to a show.
Well, I'll tell everyone the ultimate stress release. If you can afford it, just buy a jet ski and go on a lake. If you are upset after riding a jet ski, there's something severely wrong with you. Okay, there's no you. I mean, I
Agreed.
could find out my entire family has died, and if I'm jet skiing, I will at least be happy while I'm on that jet ski. And then as soon as I get off, I'll be upset and everything like that. But like, I have never seen anyone upset on a jet ski. I have never been upset on a jet ski. We're in the land of 10,000 lakes, where you can just go and I mean, it is yeah. That to me, that's the one positive with stress. Otherwise, you're on your own, everyone. I don't know how to really deal with stress because I have a hard time handling that myself at times as well. There have been times even scheduling this podcast where it's like, oh my God, too many people have said yes to coming on this podcast, where it's like, I can't schedule all these people. And then I get stressed out about
Right.
that alone. So yeah, I'm a stressful person, if you couldn't tell already, without being a super talkative person. But one of the last things, I mean, when we do have you on a year from now, because I'd like to have you on in a year, just give us an update on what you've been up to. Where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding, and what else would you like to have? Is there anything else that you'd like to achieve just in your overall life? Where would you like to be at in a year?
Um, I think this time next year, I'm probably going to be deep in just a building phase. I think after this round of shows, I want to take some good time off to really grow again as a natural person. You have to take a little bit more time to, come in, but I want to hear what the judges have to say and then build off of that. And otherwise, I would still like to really focus on my training and, get people into that more healthy lifestyle.
Yep. I mean, I've always said with this podcast, if I can inspire one person per podcast, to get in the gym and, start working out, because yeah. And I've had stories on here, people who are like in their 50s and 60s and they get started. Like, you're never too old, anyone out there who's listening. And what piece of advice do you have for anyone just to get started working out? Because for so many people, that first step is the hardest thing, where it's like a lot of things in life where once you take that first step, it just becomes so much easier.
I think one thing is getting in touch with the trainer. Like a lot of people go to the gym and don't really know what to do. And so then that on top of, maybe being a bigger or out of shape person can just add to your stress. And then a lot of people leave and don't come back. So I think finding someone who's a good fit, maybe test a couple people out, meet with a couple trainers, see who fits your personality, and then have them kind of help you and ease you into that journey. And again, a good trainer should show you how and why, not just the movements. And I think that'll give people that autonomy to feel confident and comfortable to go into the gym on their own.
Absolutely. It's just the training is so important with being the train. I mean, and there's so many bad trainers and there's very few good. I mean, that's at least what I found, where it's like you have to really find your right match. So yeah,
Yes.
it's like a job interview, really, where you should ask them questions and
Hmm.
really make sure that you yeah. So I found that to be the case as well. But now lastly, we see the trophies behind you. Where are those trophies from? What are they?
So that's from the Natural
Okay.
Viking. So I won my novice, true novice, and then the overall. And then I have a USBF medal, which I got second place. That was my first pro show 2 weeks later. I got second place in tall or overall, and then I got first place in tall.
Wait, so how tall are you?
5'7".
Okay, thank God, because I've talked to too many people where I'm like, you look so jacked, and then if you were to meet them in person, they're like, yeah, I'm 5 feet
Mhm.
tall, and you're like, I could bounce you like a basketball if I wanted to, really, basically. So it's that's this is a sport of so much illusion, people, that a lot of people just don't understand. Where it's like,
Mhm.
whoever does these people's photos where it makes them look like they're like 5'7" or something like that, and they're like, yeah, I'm like 4'11", and you're just like, okay, like that guy
Mhm.
deserves a raise that does your Instagram photos and stuff like that, because he's doing a hell of a job. But yeah, and again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey. And before we wrap things up, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh yeah, my coaches, again, Alicia and Dennis at Los Northeast. They've held my hand through this entire process. And they really made me feel comfortable and confident. And then my boyfriend Kyle, also, he's a great training partner. And kind of those days where you're talking about where you don't really have that motivation, having someone like that who's also very much into bodybuilding. He does men's physique, so we're kind of in that same wavelength, and it's just so nice to have somebody there to kind of push you the days that you're not really feeling it.
Dear God, please don't tell me that you guys have ever been on prep together, because that is just a disaster waiting to
Oh, I'm
happen.
scared. Not yet.
Oh
Not
yeah,
yet,
I
but
would
it's
have to call.
coming.
I would have to call my parents and be like, "You're gonna have to babysit us for like the next 2 weeks, because I don't even know what's gonna happen then if we have to. We're gonna like leave, our car keys in the stove or something like that, or do. I mean, oh my God, yeah. I've talked to couples that have done that, and I was like, okay, God bless you, because I do not
Mhm.
understand how that's possible. But yeah, and again, you guys go and check her out on her Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below. And again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey. It was an absolute delight to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm very appreciative.
Absolutely. Well, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.